Hello and welcome to SueStainable Action here on Cozy Radio, the heart and soul of the city. If you're listening live today, you went to audiorealm.com, you typed in Cozy into the search engine and pressed the listen icon. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Our guest today is a woman who has been doing a lot for our city. Ann, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Ann Null. I am the director of Pop-Up Play Indie, which is a brand new program, a couple years old, but we're making headway to provide children with self-directed play opportunities by providing pop-up playgrounds in city parks.
What is a pop-up playground?
Well, it is a model that has actually come from the UK. It's kind of taken root a little bit on both coasts. There's a couple programs here in the Midwest, actually 3. And it's from the philosophy that what children have lost in the last few decades, actually, is the ability to go out and play. Those of us of a certain age remember that your mother threw you out in the morning in the summer. You may or may not have returned for lunch, and you came back when the streetlights came on. But as our society kind of has morphed, those opportunities have been taken away from children. Children are regimented. They do sports programming, which is not self-directed. So, as the times marched on, we've lost that ability to play. Well, interestingly enough, during that time when we were losing that ability to play, mental health diagnoses, social emotional problems, children acting out I'm a preschool teacher by trade, children acting out because of frustration and anxiety, that it's kind of correlated. So, I've worked with a couple of women kind of by country. One's in the U.S., one's in the U.K., gotten training in how to promote and help children learn to play that way, because believe it or not, some children kind of look and say, what? And what we do is we have a partnership with Indie Parks. We come into a space, we bring our stuff, and when I say stuff, I mean stuff. Boxes, masking tape, we have rope, we have chalk, we have junk that we find along the side of the highway. We bring all those loose parts, is what kind of the term is, and we back off and let children do what they do. And they do some incredible things, let me tell you. And the position is called a play worker, and I've received specialized training in how to facilitate children's play by maintaining a cloak of invisibility, because I'm not there. It's their own space. So my job is to stand back, support them if they need support, which normally they don't, but just kind of be there, to kind of get them what they need, and so on. So that's what a pop-up playground looks like. It might look to an adult like a very junky place, but to children, it's a field of opportunities. Yes.
It's permission.
Right.
Because, don't play with that box. Don't do this. Don't do that. I feel blessed because I came from the generation of you never told your mom you were bored.
Mm-mm.
Never.
Because then you would be given a job.
Work.
Yes.
You'd be put to work if you said you were bored to your parents. That's how it used to be. It didn't used to be here's a brand new video game,
right?
Or the TV's in there,
right?
It's outside, and I understand parents' trepidation.
Yes.
About that, how that climate of not trusting your kids outside, but. So, when do these programs start? Where can people find it? Do you have a website?
Yes, I don't have a website yet. I'm working on that. But I do have a Facebook page. It's Pop-Up Play Indie, and there's also a group that's by the same name, Pop-Up Play Indie. And that kind of, we will announce our events, the other, on the Facebook page, excuse me, and also you'll kind of see just from the post what our philosophy is about childhood and children, and how the least restrictive environment is, helpful for their development. And then also Indy Parks is our primary partner, so they create Facebook posts on their on their Facebook pages as well, and create events. We have been to Brookside, Riverside, Windsor Park. We will be having one soon in Ellenberger. I'll make sure and get that up and posted for everybody. That will be in March. Eagle Creek, and probably I forgot one. So
you've been around the
we've
city.
been around. Yeah. Oh, Holiday Park. We did one on Holiday Park.
And likely you'll go back to all of, you'll just keep cycling yourself
Yes.
around.
Also, I am now going to partner with the parks to provide programming for their day camps. So like a half day of adventure play, or a full day. However, we're still kind of working out the details, but so we'll have availability to come to a day camp and provide programming, because day camps can be pretty regimented and lots of kids are there, and so kind of giving them time to breathe, I think, would be helpful.
Well, I personally am concerned for our youth today that behavior that happened in the classroom when I was a kid, that our teacher would do things like have a kid in the corner doing jumping jacks. Okay, that's how we dealt with
Right.
with what is it, ADHD? That's how we dealt with it. When I was a kid, the teacher would just work the energy off. I had seen a teacher specifically telling the teacher who was in charge of the recess that this young man needed to be exercised. So make sure he plays really hard because he's a little jumpy today.
Right.
So they start taking recesses out of
Exactly.
schools, and they wonder why these kids can't settle down. It's like our who we are as human beings are set up in a way of activity and physical learning. We didn't learn in a classroom when we were evolving out of things. We learned with hands-on in the field, in the kitchen, in the workshop.
Right.
We learned these things in movement.
Correct.
So does that, your playing ability, is there an educational component to
Absolutely. I mean, when you walk through a pop-up playground, and one of my favorite things to do is just to walk through and listen, and if I had a nickel for every time somebody said, "Oh, I have an idea," and then they go about, going about making that happen, and there's lots of trial and error. I mean, we had one set of boys who wanted to make a basketball goal, and I knew just from a physics standpoint what they were doing was not going to work, but obviously I didn't tell them that, and they realized it was not going to work. And the next time I went, there was no frustration. They just trial and error. And the next time I went over there, instead, plan B, they made a putting activity, a putting game. So, I mean, all of that trial and error was learning physics. And they were learning that it didn't work. They were also learning social skills, which are so important now, by working together and negotiating, because somebody's idea, they were firing out ideas. They, as a group, had to come together and figure out whose idea, how they were going to do that. And I would probably venture to say that's the most important thing that children get out of that, is that negotiation. And sometimes it's, sometimes somebody gets told they can't play. And, I don't force that, because nobody's going to tell me who I have to go out to dinner with. So the play worker's there to support that child who may feel rejected, to just kind of emotionally be there and say, "Are you okay?" And usually they are, and they go off and do something else. But the social emotional interactions that go on are incredible. I mean, children are capable of so much more than we think they are.
And what I enjoy about this concept is that you're not giving kids a standardized set of stuff where they already have a preconceived notion as to what playing with those objects means. It's like you don't get to play with a box and rope and masking tape all the time. Normally those are the supplies that your parents are trying to keep you out of.
Right.
So now is your chance. You can make these things. I'm assuming that you would be the one to cut things if they wanted them cut.
Well, we have, now adventure playgrounds go from what I do, which is 99% safe, all the way up to there are programs that have permanent adventure playgrounds that children have constructed themselves. So they have 2-story pallet structures that children have constructed. Obviously there's adults there to go back and make sure they're stable. That's what the play workers do. So, you know, we're at a very low risk right now, obviously. We do have the only, you know, eventually I would like to introduce tools. However, I'm not super comfortable dealing with tools, so I have to get comfortable with it first. But I mean, the biggest risky thing we have, they're called cardboard cutters, but they're, you know, it's virtually impossible to cut yourself on those. So as long as they're...
Sort of like a pumpkin carving.
Kind of like that, but, you know, actually we used ours to carve our pumpkins, so yes. And right now, the way that our program works, our families are with their children you know, during the play. So usually it's hard to keep the adults out of the children's play, but that's, you know, another story. So, you know, there's somebody there supervising them, because this is a new program. We want to, you know, we want to start small and then eventually introduce a little bit more risk.
Are there studies in England that they have proven how this helps the kids?
Yeah, there's several. Actually, Peter Gray, who is a well-known psychologist, has done a lot of research on child self-directed play. There has been, interestingly enough, there's been research done in the UK, and they found that children are injured almost twice as much on fixed equipment playgrounds than they are in adventure playgrounds. Because you think about it, it's like, okay, you mastered going across the monkey bars. Well, what's next? Oh, I know, I'll climb on top. So that actually offers more of a risk because there's not fluidity. You know, it's there, and this is what you do.
Boredom leads to injuries.
Yes. And I remember as a kid doing some stuff on a swing I probably shouldn't have done.
Boredom leads to injury, I'm pretty sure.
So there is research to show that children are very, very good at assessing their own risk. I mean, we are just hardwired to survive. So as I've said, you know, there's some play provisions that include fire, and it's like there's no 2-year-old in the world that will walk into the middle of a campfire and say, guess I'm on fire. They know it's hot. We don't do fire, so just get that out there.
But if you did, you would do it supervised.
Yes.
And it would be appropriate for the setting. It wouldn't be like in conjunction with cardboard boxes.
Or gasoline or anything like that.
But because you are cognizant of the inherent risks of items, but at the same time, if we don't trust our kids to fulfill their creative urges at this age, you know, when I just know that I am the creative human being I am because I had the opportunity to explore and creative play with what was there.
Right.
That it may help make me the person I am now, and I don't see our country fulfilling its potential as in the creative terms.
Right.
And I'm not talking, you know, artists are going to be artists, but to free the mind of somebody who is eventually going to be an engineer,
right,
or a rocket scientist, or these heavy-duty academic, if they don't get the opportunity to free play, are they going to have that in them when they're an adult to make that leap that moves us forward as a society.
Yeah, and actually, in a lot of the reading I've done, there has been kind of a theme that play is where you find your passion. And there was a story, there's a school that Peter Gray's involved with where they actually don't have any curriculum. The kids just kind of go and do what they want to do. And you can just agree or disagree with that. But what he was talking about, this one young man just slept for like the first half of a semester. He would just come in and sleep. And then he started showing an interest in aviation, and he started showing an interest in photography, and he was allowed to do, to pursue those interests however he wanted to, and it ended up, the story really was powerful to me, ended up being one of the top wildlife photographers using aerial photography. So through his play, his passion arose, and, would he have ever put that together? Maybe he would, because he was driven, but the fact is,
but would he be able to be doing it professionally? Would he have discovered that these are things that he likes when he's 25?
Exactly.
When he already been to school for something that was practical and would put food on his table. How many people are we shuffling into drone work when they're our future?
Yes.
So that's why I was excited when Kelly said, I have this gal that you need to talk to on your show. I'm like, I trust my guests when they tell me of someone else that should be my guest.
Yes.
So shout out to Kelly Dawn Jones.
Yay.
She's really good at what she does too.
Yes, she is. We're actually partnering on another project, so we're of the same mind. Neither one of us is afraid to speak up for what we think is right.
And as our children need advocates who are reality based.
Yes.
Teaching to a test has never been anything but ridiculous to me.
Well, and not being a great test taker myself, it has not been reflective, I think, of where my talents lie, for sure.
So, many questions. I'll switch to the easy ones. Are you a 501c3?
I am not. I am operating now, currently, as an independent contractor. Underneath the auspice of Indy Parks right now, we'll see how it goes along. This is very new. There's been some changes in my professional life, so I'm kind of making the leap of faith to jump from a 9 to 5 to doing this on a contract basis. So the business / organization may go. I don't know which way it's going to go.
So if someone wanted to donate, say, to your program, could they go like to the Indy Parks Foundation and make a donation earmarked for your program?
We just, again, these changes have occurred pretty quickly. I am currently working underneath a grant. That grant will end in May. So after that, it's going to be pretty much on a contractual basis. Any monetary donations, I think, can just be made to Pop-Up Play Indy. There's also, the donations, there's stuff donations, of course, which are for free. We send around what we call an unshopping list, because really nothing at Pop-Up Play, other than masking tape and some other stuff, should cost any money. So it's a very inexpensive program to run. It may be that I do a 501c3. It's just, I'm kind of feeling my way around this right now.
All right, so listeners, people in the Indianapolis area, what I'm asking for you to do, your action here for Ann and Pop-Up Play, is to encourage the Parks Department to continue this programming, to ask the Parks Department how you can donate to this program. Look them up on Facebook and donate directly to the program. But remember that this is a squeaky wheel kind of world. So if you believe in this type of situation for the youth of our city, you need to tell the city that,
Yes.
that this is a good thing, and you need to tell the parents in your neighborhood. If you don't have kids, you need to let people know that there is such a program going, and to have them ask the Parks Department when the next pop-up play is and when it's coming to the park near them.
Well, and I have met with a couple of people who are kind of experts in getting funding, and what they pretty much told me is that we need to become a priority for the Parks Department to then approach the foundation, to then approach the funders. So right now, that's why I just am going to dig my heels in the ground and be something that they want to promote, and they want to make a priority, and to make Indianapolis a more playful city for our children, because they need it.
They definitely need it. I have all the respect in the world for mothers and motherhood. It's a job that I have adamantly refused. I just a lot of respect for anybody who goes through that process. But that said, I've always felt a responsibility to the children in our society, because my old age depends on
Right.
what kind of people we grow from when I was a kid to when I'm in my deathbed. All those things, the society that we create is how do we teach our children. So pop-up and play is an exciting thing to me, because I got to play with boxes and sticks and making stick forts and
Yep.
just trial and error, finding out that it's pretty hard to make a waterproof
Fort.
it's hard to make a waterproof thing out of the things you find readily in nature. You have to work hard at making it a shelter that will actually keep you dry. And that experience taught me so much, just on so many levels. And I think, to me, that's the only, I've been able to put together my pop-up and play kind of experience without adult supervision, because I grew up out in the country.
Right. And
I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And
oh yeah, we'll see ya.
yeah, there, out you go. Just listen. We had 80 acres of wood and pasture land behind our house, and that was my playground. And we didn't have street lights, but we had somebody come out and honk the horn when you were supposed to head toward home. I mean, take one of the vehicles and honk the horns, and you're like, oh, uh-oh, I need to get home.
Yep.
Because if they're honking the horn, that means I'm late. No street lights, I guess. Oh, I guess it is getting dark, So we're not a 501c3, but what we need to do is hook up with you through Facebook.
Yes.
To help get you the materials you need, so there's no cost in that. And we need to bug the Parks Department to make, and it wouldn't hurt, folks, to share her stuff out on your Facebook page.
Right.
To take pop-up and play and give it a higher profile, so that everybody knows somebody who has kids who aren't getting outside enough. Everybody knows kids who only play video games and watch TV. And this is not how we develop well-rounded, full-on human beings who know how to interact with each other. This is not how we do it. Them sitting playing video games, I don't care if they have a headset and there's a half a dozen of them on the same kill mission in an online video game. That is not the kind of social skills that we need our children to develop.
Right, and actually, there's a lot of models outside the U.S., but one model was in Australia, and it was during recess, and they were having a bullying problem, and so they have a program there called play pods, and what they are essentially storage containers with loose parts, the same kind of thing that we use in pop-up, that gets delivered to the playground, so that during recess, children have access to the loose parts materials. And what they found out was bullying actually really declined, because if you want to build a zip line, you probably need some of those kids that were, that were not involved in play with the different cliques that are already involved. So it's like you might need that kid that's really good at math, because he or she might be able to do something that you can't. So they found that when children work together for a purpose, it's like they suddenly realize you can't just pick your friends, because your friends really might be bad at figuring out how to make the zip line work. And so I think it just promotes everything we want in children, and a lot that we've taken away from them.
In my experience, the bullies are oftentimes just it's they don't know what to do with themselves.
Yeah.
And if you give them purpose, so, I watched, I filmed a community project, and I watched the lady running it take the kids who were being mouthy and giving her a hard time, and she put them in charge of things.
Oh yeah, that's the best thing to do. And they love it.
And then they have authority.
Right.
And they're special. They've been anointed like they are due. And it changed the whole everything started working after
right.
that. The actual work of the project, after she had picked out, she knew,
right.
They make themselves obvious.
Yes, they do.
Who is going to put their energy in tanking the whole project, and she put one of them in charge of making sure everybody had the gloves, and then and brushes, and then she sent the pair of them to go get the next thing that they needed. And it just rolled, and the project happened in a timely fashion, and everything worked out, and it was beautiful, and everybody felt a sense of accomplishment. And nobody went to the principal's office. Nobody.
Right.
It wasn't. The way she handled that, just. Let's just put it this way. I'm glad people like you and her have gone to the trouble of getting trained on how to deal with these situations, so that you have the best foot going forward in these situations. I appreciate that.
Well, and interestingly enough, and I'm a bluntly honest person, anybody that knows me can attest to that, I don't embellish. We have not had one behavior problem at any event I've ever had. There have been times where things that were uncomfortable happened. There are times when I was uncomfortable with what was happening, and I had to take a step back and say, is this my problem? Because there was a situation where some children built this really adult, we loved it because it had all this wispy fabric on it and all of this stuff. So it was very attractive to adults. So, and then when the children that were done doing that, they were off doing something else, and there were these boys who took, we have thick cardboard tubes, and they just took to destroying that structure. Well, a couple of my volunteers are still kind of getting used to this idea. We're like, but they're destroying that, and I'm like, they have the power to create, and they have the power to destroy. The other children who built it were fine. They were off doing something else. So just because that's uncomfortable for an adult to see, we have to know that that's an adult problem, and we step back, because they were having a ball, of course. This work takes a lot of reflection. It takes a lot of what baggage do I bring to the playground? What are my touch points? Because now my volunteers know if they're doing something, they tap out. They'll just say, "Can you go over there because I'm nervous about it."
Yeah, they're pressing my buttons.
Right, and I don't have much. I mean, I'll tolerate about anything, but they were laughing because they finally knew I had a limit when the kids were fighting with cardboard tubes and somebody picked up a vacuum hose. I'm like, that's gonna sting if you make
that'll leave a mark.
Right. So I just, again, very light touch. I'm like, it's great what you guys are playing. It's fine, but can you choose from those tubes over there something that you'd like to play with, because this could hurt somebody? And he was like, he was an 8 or 9 year old kid. He was like, okay,
He was like, oh yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah. So
because he hadn't put any thought into it.
No, and he may not have had experience. I mean, it's just experiencing it, but I really didn't want the other child to experience it the hard way. So that's an example of a light touch. The other thing is we had a girl that walked away from her little project and sat down on a curb, and you could tell she was frustrated, and I just came alongside her and said, are you okay? And she goes, I'm very frustrated with my project. And I said, okay, well, can you show me what you're frustrated with? And we got up, her little face, got back lit up. We went back, and she completely abandoned me. She was back in the project. So I stepped back because she was done with me. And it's those situations.
That's really funny though, that she was checked out, and all you did was basically engage her again on it, and once she got back to it, she was like not frustrated anymore.
Right. She was like, and I knew that I was not needed anymore, and stepped back, and so it takes a lot of practice, especially for somebody that comes from a teaching background.
Light touch is hard.
Very hard. And it's hard for adults not to matter. And that's the whole goal of play work, is to not matter. It's very, very difficult to do that. But, when you see the children and what they do, then, it's worth a couple of checks on yourself to really see the result.
Do you have any favorite outcomes from the plays? Do you have things that you took pictures of because it was like, I don't understand how they took these materials and came up with this thing, but I want to remember this forever?
Yeah, we take tons of pictures. I try, of course, when you're promoting a new program, you need to put marketing and all of that kind of stuff, and everybody gets that. I am now wondering, if having all those screens is kind of against what we want, for us to kind of be invasive on their play and take pictures of it. So I do have lots of pictures, yes. I take pictures, and then of course anything that I post on Facebook is either from the back. I don't show a child's face. But I have...
Good job on that.
Yes. We have a photo release, but I'm still not comfortable doing it, even if it's a photo. Because sometimes parents sign that and don't think about it and so on. So I am pretty careful about that.
Why be the one... Why be the one who took that picture that's used for something
exactly
that's
right?
not right?
Right.
So
I'm
with you.
Being many years in childcare, I know all the pitfalls. So I do take a picture of it. I try and sneak basically and do it so that they can, and then so they. I'm kind of wrestling with that right now. Do you ask permission? Because it's sometimes when you take a picture, they will look at you, and it's like, ew, did I just violate some trust that right there? So I'm kind of struggling with that a little bit right now. But yes, we do have pictures, because when I go and ask, and it's very difficult to picture. Once you see it, you're like, oh, okay. But it's a difficult thing to picture because there's just no other program like it right now in the city.
And it's an abstract thing because you're letting kids loose with materials, and they're going to come up with whatever is inside their heads.
Yeah, and we have to watch, saying, what are you making? Because that's an assumption that they're making something. They may not be. They may be just experimenting with the material. So there's lots of ways. We call it adulting or adulteration. There's a lot of adulting going on sometimes.
And that's... adults are gonna adult, but you gotta let the kids be the kids.
Yes. And you have to know, and one thing I read in probably the definitive work on play work, is that looking at children as a culture. And it doesn't, I mean, not all children, but, you know, toddlers are a different culture than 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds are a different culture than 9-year-olds. And we as adults are guests in that culture. Just as if we were visiting a foreign country. You don't go to Italy and walk into the restaurant and tell them how to, you know, cook whatever. You are a guest, so you step back and you experience and you process that other culture. So we need to look at children like that, because childhood is a culture, and we are not part of that culture anymore, and we can never go back. But if we can respect, you know, them going through what they need to go through, and of course adults are there to guide, but if we walk into their space, we're in their space, and that we have to always be cognizant of that.
That's a really good tool in and of itself to be teaching the kids, is that they have a right to their own space.
Yes, absolutely.
And that they should be in life. There are many moments when you should be able to work it out for yourself.
Right.
But if you need help,
somebody's there.
There's somebody there. So these are all wonderful life skills.
Yes, and again, it's what a lot of young people lack. Teaching preschool for years and years and years, you know, 3-year-olds are regimented every day. An adult wouldn't tolerate 5 minutes of how many young children are treated in childcare. Not because childcare is bad, it's not. But, you know, there's this time, and children who have difficulty with transitions are acting out because they, you know, there's too much, and
they were enjoying what they were doing.
Right.
Why are we switching?
Right.
I want to still do this. I'm having fun doing this.
And, you know, I always say, too, as a preface, is this is not a curriculum. This is an experience. This is something that is added onto schooling, so that children have a chance to experience both things. Because I'm not, you know, I'm not against structure in preschool to a certain extent at all, because children don't thrive in no structure, but they do thrive in no structure for a couple hours.
Well, if the structure is no structure.
Right.
So it's sort of a trick.
Right.
In a positive sense.
Right.
It's saying freeform. It's like you can do what you want within reason. Sort of like society.
Sort of like life.
You can do what you want within
reason. Right.
And what will you do if you are given this time and stuff to do it with? So I know what it was like as a kid, and I had, in my opinion, a really good childhood. And I feel like that it set me up to be a successful adult. I can't imagine who I would be as a human being if my questions were left unanswered. Now, granted, I got taught how to use phonics, to use a dictionary before 3rd grade. I knew how to use encyclopedias before 3rd grade because my siblings didn't like all the questions, so they taught me how to look them up for myself.
There you go.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
It taught me how to find information. I didn't learn that in school. I learned that from my siblings. But not every... So how do you learn these different things like this? Well, free play is one of the ways that you learn how to get what you need.
Right. And I think also, you know, there have been also studies shown that this type of play is very healing to those children who, you know, have or are experiencing trauma, that, you know, going to a place where they are respected, they're wanted, can be very healing. And pop-up playgrounds are very, very human spaces. A lot of human emotions and interactions happen there. So, you know, I think, you know, everybody's talking about trauma-informed care, which I totally get. But to me, you don't know what other people have been through. So to me, you treat all people and children as if they are experiencing trauma, and it's just being a human being. I mean, that's just the bottom line on it. And a pop-up playground or adventure playground that's staffed with people that are trained is that place. You're accepted. You come in a bad mood, you take your cardboard tube and bang it against a tree for an hour, that's fine. Because you need to do that, obviously.
The sense of control that the children must feel in this situation, in a pop-up and play environment where they can just take a tube and hit a tree for an hour and nobody's going to give them crap over it. That kind of control, to just be able to express your anger
Exactly.
without being judged for it or stopped or told you have to handle it in any other way than what you feel on the inside at that moment, that is most definitely a healing.
Yes.
I just remember times in my life when I was forced to eat my anger.
Right.
And as an adult, I dealt with those things in therapy.
Exactly.
In therapy, I dealt with those situations because they were such a mark on my soul, because I should have been able to be angry in those situations.
Right.
And I should have been able to, but I wasn't the adult in the room. So then, so does this has it brought forward to you a child that you felt like they were being abused?
I don't, over the years, and I've worked at a lot of, several places, with Head Start being one of them, with children. And not to say that only children in poverty have problems. That's absolutely not true.
That is not true.
Absolutely not true.
We're not saying that.
No. And I don't believe that. And actually, our expert that came to visit, when we did our pop-up in Holiday Park, said that a lot of times the more affluent communities have a harder time because they're more regimented. Because a lot of people whose both parents work, they might have some unsupervised time during the day, so they know what to do. But some of these children who are taken from lesson to lesson don't. And we kind of found that at Holiday Park. It was interesting. A couple of kids came by and they were just like overwhelmed instantly, and you could tell that our space caused them anxiety. Just the free form, and then other kids were fine. So definitely children are children. But I think what you see is that, like you said, those emotions that are, I think they make adults uncomfortable seeing a child's anger, because it's a little raw. I mean, it isn't like our eat anger where we just say, yeah, I'm fine, with our teeth gritted. Sometimes their anger can be raw. Sometimes it can be a little scary. But you have to express it, and if I went and visited an excellent program in Champaign-Urbana, and we're kind of partnering, and there was a little girl who approached a play situation, and she was new, and the guys that were playing had a real intense game going on about castles and all that kind of stuff. Well, she did not know how to approach them. They included her in the game in their mind by, she was the alien, so they were all chasing her with pool noodles and chasing her off. Well, to them, they'd incorporated her into the game. But
And
to her,
yeah.
she was not okay with that. So the play worker just went over to her and said, "Are you okay with this?" And she said, "No." And so, the play worker just went over and she sat in a hammock for a while. But interestingly enough, when I was there, she went right back to them. So she wanted to play with them, but just didn't know how to enter. She was not at the level of social skills that those kids were at. So those kinds of things can be uncomfortable. When we see a child sad, they kind of have to work through that sadness. She had to find a safe space to be in, and she found that. So dealing with those raw emotions is difficult because as adults, we may have baggage.
We all have baggage. You don't grow up in this country anymore without baggage.
Right, and you have to be aware as a play worker of what that baggage is and how you are going to put your needs aside and meet the needs of that child. No matter, if you want to go home and cry, that's fine. But when you're there, you have to be for them. And so I think just, again, being treated like a human being is hugely healing, especially nowadays when, people are just the way they are.
Well, I think there's a lot of hope for humanity. But it's important that we give our kids the tools that it takes to develop into well-rounded human beings. And I think we've been severely lacking in that for a couple of decades now.
Easily, yeah.
And our society is showing that cost. What's the phrase? It's hard to find good help today. Now, I heard that when I was a child.
Yes, that meant a little different when we were growing up.
But in today's world, where it's the same minimum wage that it was like forever ago, or at least a decade from the last raise in minimum wage, so it's not a living wage.
No.
So hard to find good help. Well, it's not so hard if you pay somebody a living wage.
Right.
People show up for you, and they do the shifts. If you're paying them commensurate with the dignity, it's a dignity thing. Paying people a living wage is paying a person to give them the ability to feel good about themselves.
Right, and childcare and youth work is absolutely, as I'm sure Kelly stated over and over, we all, in my career, woefully underappreciated. I have a master's degree, which is not that big a deal, but I was paid less in a community college system than the men who were faculty in the car repair, and they had associates because they said they had to compete with the market. So, I took that on. I'm not complaining about it. I get it. Made some sacrifices. Fortunately, we're a two-income family, so I was able, there's a lot of fortunates about my career, but, that's...
If this system is going to work, though, if we're going to raise kids that are productive members of society, we need to fund education.
Yes.
Everything from things like pop-up and play, where we get these kids going, get their brains racing and get them excited about things, because it's hard to get excited about what somebody tells you to get excited about.
Right.
If
you're not excited about it, you will act out and tell them that you're not so excited about it. That's also, children are told that they are not successful if they can't sit down you're not successful, you're not successful. Somebody has got to be there to tell them you're okay the way you are and you really have some fabulous ideas.
And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh, no.
And that's something when you're playing with stuff, it's not the same as building an IKEA playhouse.
Oh gosh, my IKEA playhouse would look a little different.
But point being,
right?
It's having that flexibility of having some place in life that it doesn't have to look a certain way when you're done in order for it to be valued.
Right, exactly. And we have one situation, having the parents there with the children is a double-edged sword because, of course, the parents totally get involved. And that's okay. Really, that time with the family, no screens, and mom or dad is totally engaged in what the child's doing, okay, I'm not going to say anything. But we had one, it was at Brookside Park, where the mom was with her son, and she was having a ball making a truck for him, and she had his name on it and everything. He was standing there, and I was watching, and then mom went to go speak to another woman that she must have known or whatever at the park, and then the little boy, I heard him say, "Now I can make what I want," and like tore the truck apart. I was hoping, against hope, which the mom did, that because what could have very well happened is the mother would come over and get angry with him for disassembling her project. Right. But she didn't, which was great. And then, the little boy tore it apart and made whatever he made. So there's a distinction, even when parents are working with children, which again, it's not something I love to see, because I want the children, but it is something I love to see, because really having them collaborate on things, and because adults do not know how to play like that, they have to take the lead from their children, because an adult going into a pop-up playground is just like, well, I don't know what to do. I'll draw a face and,
Well, except for the artist class, which we promote a lot of artists and that type of human being on our show.
Oh, yes.
So we have people who are perhaps right now going, why didn't I have these spaces when I was a child?
Well, and they're more than welcome to come to our spaces and, because that is not my forte. I'll tell you that right now. We could certainly partner with artists. They could have a pop-up art studio, along with the pop-up for those children that are interested in doing that. A lot of play workers, when we go to conferences, are not teachers. We had one that we went to, and actually people from Tasmania came to camp outside in Houston, Texas, they call it a campference of play workers. I mean, they had a acrobat, they had, the parkour expert is a play worker and has done this. So a lot of us are not from the education. A lot of artists, a lot of people who work in conjunction with art, like public art, that kind of stuff. So librarians, it's taken off with some children's librarians. So a lot of us are just called to it. So definitely any cooperation with artists I'd be open to, because that's always... I'm a science person as far as being a teacher. I love biology and natural science, so art has always been a little struggle. So musicians, I would love to have, we could do a pop-up space where somebody's there with a musical instrument, or coming kind of a roving minstrel. That would be awesome. Also, I think engaging seniors in the community, and inviting them to come to share any kind of skill any kind of skill or whatever they want to share with children. And also, I think a lot of seniors would really enjoy sitting there watching children play the way they used to play. So I think it can be building a whole neighborhood around play.
This is one of those moments that we like to thank our Protect and Serve in Indianapolis. They do a fine job of rescuing us, and we appreciate them. Take a moment to say this is Sue Spicer with SueStainable Action here on Cozy Radio, the heart and soul of the city. We are here with Ann Null of Pop-Up Play, and you can find her on Facebook, Pop-Up Play Indy. Pop-Up Play Indy, because we don't want you trying to go to Houston. We want you to, unless you're listening in Houston, and then seek out pop-up and pop-up play activities in your area. There is room to grow this program. So
absolutely.
If you are anywhere in the world listening to this right now, you want to do something like this for the children of your community, reach out and the connections will be made. But in the interim, Indianapolis folks, you guys need to make sure that this program is made solvent in this city. We want the Parks Department to understand. And again, we want to thank our Protect and Serve But we need programs like this to help our kids make it to the next level. If we want a next level society, we have to give our kids everything that they need in order to be the creative, how do I put this, whole people.
Yes.
We need our kids to come out of childhood as whole people. And their parents are strapped. We're not paying living wages for the most part. I saw a statistic 2 days ago that 13 people have as much wealth as half of the people on this planet.